Hi, I'm Dave Nazepper, tech reporter at FedScoop, and you're watching FedTalks TV. Joining me today is Ryan Day, director of the Digital Services Division at GSA. Ryan, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here.
I want to start by asking you, how has federal technology played a critical role in 2020 as an unprecedented pandemic has rocked the nation?
Well, I think the first story we have to talk about would be telework. What we saw at our agency and many others is that the investment that we had put into on infrastructure to provide our agency to telework really paid off. So, that involves a lot of things. It's about, cloud computing resources and purchasing and laptops and all of those things. But what that allowed us to do was basically to shift into a full telework mode without skipping a beat. And that also involved us being able to quickly let our users have tools about the messaging and document collaboration, meetings, things like this that really allowed us to continue to do the mission of government. Another one you might look at, especially it's close to us at GSA, is there's a lot of other technologies that we were able to roll out through our acquisition vehicles. So things, like the technologies of frontline workers were using, building entry screening, also a lot of that technology I mentioned about telework, and even some things like 3D printing, some things like this that we were able to roll out to federal agencies and actually then extend to state and local in many cases. And that allowed those missions to continue, allowed us to be able to respond to COVID. Another thing that it did is that in all those ways, it supported small businesses because so many of our acquisition vehicles have small businesses components, and that's a part of the economy that's hit really hard right now.
How can federal agencies prepare to take advantage of modern and emerging technologies like cloud, AI, and automation?
I think what we see is that emerging technologies always emerge. There's always something new. So, AI is an example of that. And what we see is that the technologies like that advance rapidly out in the private industry. They advance rapidly in open source. So what government can do is basically lay the groundwork so that we're prepared to use them and really take advantage of the opportunities that come with those emerging techs. So we look at things like developing great security processes so we understand how to quickly go through and securely vet new technologies, implement them in a secure way, in a way that allows us to really accelerate and use those. Another key, technology is cloud computing itself. What we see is that a lot of emerging tech advances very quickly through cloud computing providers. And so by being able to be cloud ready, an agency like ours can really be in a position to take advantage of those innovative technologies. Another one that's a little bit more technical as well, though, is really working around an API-first architecture. So what we see a common theme on a lot of these things, whether it's cloud computing, whether it's artificial intelligence, machine learning, is that an underlying technology, an underlying technique that's used to consume and provide all of those is via application programming interfaces. So if an organization become world-class about consuming APIs, understanding, finding APIs, delivering APIs, it really becomes a key accelerator to whatever the next emerging tech is. And then a couple of practices that we see as well that are really fundamental for consuming of emerging tech are Agile and DevSecOps. So being an Agile organization, having the techniques of communication and quickly forming teams and being able to pivot and be able to explore, that really is critical. And then some of the techniques around DevSecOps, some of the deployment pipelines, infrastructure as code, continuous integration, it really builds in an organization that can deliver, can experiment, can really put the emerging tech into production for the mission.
How can the federal government bring talented technologists to its workforce?
There's a lot of ways. A couple that we really focus on are really building out that pipeline. So what I mean by that is looking at who are the university students, who are the entry-level employees coming into the industry that we want to be part of our organization long-term. So we put a lot of time in internships and fellowships. So an example of fellowship is the Civic Digital Fellows Program. And by bringing in those early career or soon to be early career technologists, they come in, they understand our culture, they understand our mission, and they see the value and the fun and excitement that comes from working for the federal government. Another thing that I think is key in this one is geographic flexibility. So traditionally, a lot of federal government hiring tended to be toward regional headquarters or toward, in Washington, D.C. But what we're seeing is that there is great talent throughout the entire United States. So really, through programs like the telework, but other things like that, being able to hire, being able to recruit the best talent all across the United States really becomes an advantage.
What other trends and priorities do you have on your radar in 2021?
In 2021, a big priority for us is workforce development. So what we see is there's a lot of needs across government for making the workforce ready for some of these new technologies. So just a couple of examples are having a cloud-ready workforce. Another one is having an AI-ready workforce. And there's really a lot of components of that. One is for the technologists in our organization to be prepared to understand and deliver those technologies. Also working with the business inside our agency to understand, what are good fits for the technology, when to use them, where's the value. And so right now we're working a lot on our staffing models, how we deliver that technology, and really looking at some new approaches to how we continually learn as an organization. How do we continually be skilling our staff to, in a repeatable way, to when a new technology, when a new pattern comes up, to be able to skill up on it, understand it, know how to apply it, explain it to our customers. And so that's something that we see as really critical right now in a couple of those discrete topics, but also really looking at how do we put those processes in place so that, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, that our workforce continues to be prepared and skilled for implementing those.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ryan. We look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thanks, my pleasure.